Hi everyone, it's Diana with Homeschoolific, and today we are going to talk about sex. So let's talk about homeschooling and sex education. And this is a topic that I actually don't hear a lot of homeschoolers talk about, but I have often had, on videos, but I've often had homeschoolers ask me, how and when do we talk about sex education? So let's talk about it. I've got some notes here, so if you see me looking up and down, that's pretty much why, because I really wanted to stay on part for this. And I'm, just to let you guys know, some of you are going to feel a bit uncomfortable about this. I'm going to let you know how we do it and what my recommendations are. And this will work whether you have you're secular or religious. But I'm definitely, because I'm religious, going to put religious aspects in it towards the end. So I'll let you guys know on that. Okay, so first, let's talk about what sex education is or supposed to be, because I think we've really lost sight of it in our modern day society. Sex education is supposed to teach about reproduction, also about changes in the body, and that the child will or maybe are already encountering. And then how to protect yourself against sexual abuse, or if if sexual abuse is happening, what to do. And then what is sexual transmitted disease and how to avoid them. So that's what sex education is. That's what it was intended to do. And so at the core, that's really what you should be doing. I do think as a homeschooler, we should be including personal experiences along with, our own, I feel like because you know your child, you're going to be able to present them and provide them with a point of view that's catered to them. You might find, I've had one of my boys, they were interested in the woman body young, 2-3 years old, passing by Victoria's Secrets, and my son's like, "Mama." I'm like, no. Have such a problem with some of those things. They don't think about children. But anyway, I digress. So sometimes that is the case. That there's some interest, but I have my own theories about that. I think that these ads are meant to catch eyes, and I think they do a good job at it. That's my point. And actually, half-naked body is supposed to be something that we are paying attention to, I guess, because it's not supposed to be normal. But let me keep going. I also wanted to tell you that sex education should start early. And when I say early, I mean early. Sex education is an ongoing conversation you're going to have for many years. And honestly, I still talk to my grown children about sex, because it is an ongoing conversation. The idea that sex education starts at 5th grade, goes on to 9th or 10th grade, and then we're done, I actually don't think that's true. But I don't think that it has to be something that you write into your curriculum, throughout the whole time. So yeah, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade into the curriculum, definitely a good idea. You're gonna hear my kids back there, they're just loud people. But sex education should always start at home. It should always, whether you public school or not, private school, sex education should start at home, okay? So what we have done is when our kids start asking, we, at an age appropriate level, we answer questions. My first one was my son being 2 years old, and he says, "Mama, what happened to your pee-pee?" So let's start the lessons now, and so that is the kind of things that you're going to encounter, and you talk to your children as it goes, this, and so it's ongoing. So and here's the thing, guys, if you don't do this, they're going to have questions and they're going to get answers, and they might not be the answers you want them to have, and they may not even be correct answers remotely, but they're going to find out. So the best thing you can do is to get ahead of it. And just to use myself as an example, I have excellent, wonderful parents, and my parents were young, and so young parents, they do, I've done both. There's such a perk and a disadvantage of being a young parent, right? But sex wasn't talked about in my home. And unfortunately, we kids learned from our peers. And peers are the worst people to teach you about sex. They are the worst people because they're going through these things that they don't understand. And so, and then they're all crowded together in a hormone-infested environment of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And they're supposed to be providing this crucial information. So make sure, and just because you're homeschooling doesn't mean your kids are immune from understanding, from seeking these information out. If there's other kids around, movies, internet, this is going to be something they're going to find out. And they're going to be hyper aware to it because they don't feel like they can come to you to talk. They need to know they can talk to you about it at all time. This is why I also say sex education should start early, because the earlier you start, the less uncomfortable they are. Once you get to about the 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there, depending on each child, they're going to get uncomfortable talking to you. But if you talk to them early as they go about their bodies, use the proper terminology and keep it going, it's not so uncomfortable for them because they have questions. And when they get older, they want to know. All right. Also, don't use fairy tales when you're talking to your kids about their bodies and different things, especially like when they're young. Don't tell them that the baby came from the stork or some crazy stuff. Like, tell them the truth. The other thing you want to make sure that you do, really important, is to educate yourself. And I think that there's some excellent books out there. I will put a few suggestions out there towards the end of this video on what we've used and what we've liked. But it's really important that you educate yourself, and especially if you're teaching a child that's not the same gender as you are. And if anyone that knows me, I don't know if I introduced myself, I'm Diana. I'm from Homeschooling. I have a mom of 5 boys, and I've homeschooled them all, not all completely, but the last 2 completely, and my 3rd one since 1st grade. But anyways, back to what I was saying. So I have all 5 boys. I have never had the honor of talking to my daughter, about sex education from a woman's standpoint. So it's always been, me educating them. Not that my husband doesn't teach them stuff as well too, but for the formal teaching, I do it. So I had to educate myself. And so I've read books on about boys, books on raising boys. I understand the male mind quite a bit. And so as, not completely, I'm not a specialist, but I made it my goal to educate myself. And so there were conversations that I could have with my boys ahead of time, like, hey, there's time when you're going to have an erection in these situations, that situation. It means nothing. It's normal. Every male will go through it. It doesn't have anything to do with who you are. It has something to do with your body going through things right now, because it is. Your body's immature. It is learning how to do things, how to function. And so you're going to have these things. You're going to have wet dreams. Like, we talk about these things, and and they also have they're comfortable with knowing that if that does happen, they just go wash the sheets. We don't make a big deal about it. I'm not going to ask you any questions. We all know what's happening. Just wash sheets, keep it moving. It's not a big deal. And there is such a relief in that, And then also too, they're, as brothers, they get to talk amongst each other and laugh about it and whatever. And so it's a comfortable conversation instead of being a conversation of taboo. So keep in mind that your children are curious. They're curious about every part of their body. If we're going to tell them so many things about their brain and about the functioning of their mouth and how it's the beginning of their digestive system, you better believe they want to know about those reproduction organs and about the hormonal changes that's going to happen in their bodies. Keep in mind something else that you want to do is you want to talk to them about the behavioral changes that are going to happen. And here's why. There is going to be a thing in their brain that is going to tell them that everything you tell them is wrong. And I teach my kids, as I tell them this ahead of time, like, my mom was always for me. She was always my advocate. And for whatever reason, once I hit puberty, I literally would make up things in my head that she was against me, though she wasn't. She was always for me, always been for me. And somehow in my head, I had created this this idea that she was doing all these crazy things. Like, I thought she had spies on me, like all this crazy stuff. But no. And it was just hormonal changes, and I didn't understand what was going through my body. I didn't understand why I was often at odds with my mom for no good reason. I couldn't understand it. But, excuse me, the more I've learned, you know, about what's going on, and I've learned, especially in educating my children, I've been able to look back on those things and say, this is why I felt this way. This is why I thought these things. It had nothing to do with my mother. It had everything to do with these raging hormones that was happening in my body. And hormones are a real thing and should not be discounted. We need to understand, but we're capable, you know, as adults, we go through hormonal changes, especially us mamas. But when we have an understanding of why and how to cope with them, we deal with them so much better. And this has been my experience with my boys. As I've taught them early on what their bodies are going to go through, what hormonal changes they will see, what symptoms might show up, this, you know, and what you can do to combat that. We have had a really amazing teenage time. Like, I'm not tooting my own horn. I don't think it's just me. I know it's God as well. But I have had, I'm on my fourth teenager. My fourth one is 15 years old. And I absolutely love all my teenagers. I have enjoyed thoroughly the teenage years, except for the smells. But that's another thing. That's the changes that's going to happen to your body. Tell them ahead of time. There's going to be odors, and they're going to smell, and here's what's happening. Here is why, and here's why it's so strong. And just know it's not going to stay this way, but it's just for right now. This is why you need to make sure you're showering every day, even though you don't want to. You have to. It's important for you. And I will tell you that your boys will have a hard time staying out of the shower. So that was weird, wasn't it? Anyway, so keep all those things in mind. Now, if you are a person of a religion or a faith, or a belief system of any kind, I actually I don't subscribe to the idea that there are people who don't have a belief. Your lack of belief is also belief, because you can't prove it. So no matter what your belief or non-belief system is, whatever you want to call it, whatever you believe, there is something that you have, right? So these are things that you want to actually make sure you're talking to your children about. So right now I'm going to talk to you about my faith as a Christian and what we make sure we instill. So our focal book that we use, and this is one of my recommendations. So a couple books that I would recommend, and I'm going to show you because I have two different, I don't know what the cover looks like now. I haven't bought the latest one, but I have actually 4 of these. And I'm going to let you know ahead of time, this is faith-based, Christian-based. Also, it is controversial in the Christian community. Not everybody actually thinks this is the way to go. It's by Dennis Rainey and his family, his children. But it's called So You Want to Be a Teenager. And I do this at preteen, approximately 10 years old. Some people think that's a bit too young, but in our family, this works for us. And I think the latest I've ever done it, because I feel like when I found it, my oldest was 11 or 12. So I did start it with my third son at 10. He wasn't quite 100% ready. So we paused and then finished at about 12. Closer, yeah. No, it was my fourth son that was the case. He was a late bloomer, my fourth son. So yeah, excuse me. Now I'm going to tell you why it's controversial. It's particularly because he walks into the whole sex thing. He talks about it completely. He tells everything that's happening, how it's happening, what's going on with the body, the functions that's happening with the body. And I guess a lot of people are uncomfortable with that. It's one of the reasons why I love the book, because I even remember sex education when I was a kid, and in elementary, that's when we started. And I really was totally lost. And my teacher used her hands to show everything, and I still felt like it was lost. There are no pictures, but it's very descriptive. And so there are no questions really on how it's done. I also do, I encourage, with my first boys, I tend to let them read it and then come to me, my older boys. But then with my second and third sons, I actually sat with them and read these with them. So we could talk about it right then and there. And while my third son was often very uncomfortable, so what he would do is he would take the pillows and just kind of put himself in there, but then he'd pop back out for a question. So, that does happen, but it's fine. He's just like that. He gets a little overwhelmed by information, but at the same time, he wants the information. So this was also a pretty good one too, called Almost 12. And it came with pictures and things like that. It was by no means as thorough as this. This goes into everything, especially with your faith walk. And while this one is actually Christian based too. This is through Sunlight. But it was good. It was worth going through. It was a quick read, and it had drawings, sketches to kind of just help you to understand, help your child to go what they're going through with their body. There's a boy version and a girl version, once it gets to certain parts. And this book also has chapters that are dedicated to the boys and dedicated to the girls in it as well. Another book that I did not grab, but I did do as well, and this was something that was sent by Sunlight, was all about boys. And it's just, and this is secular or faith-based, no matter what. And it just basically talks about boys and puberty and what their body's going through and the changes, the voice changes, and when they're squeaking, or with the girls, the tenderness of the breast, and the cycles not being right for the first little while, how to deal with the embarrassments and all that stuff. And so those were really good books as well. So if you're interested in that book, I would encourage you to go to the Sunlight website, look for Core F, and look for their science and health section, and you would be able to find that there. And it was really, really informative. We do include our faith in our replies to our children about sex education. We let them know why. We also let them know about grace if they fall, that we're gonna ask God for forgiveness. We're perfectly candid. We have to be perfectly candid to our kids about our situation. Anyway, our two oldest boys were in our one was in our wedding, one was at our wedding, because my husband and I, we did not get married until we already had two kids, so there's no, our kids know, so we let them know what the expectation is. We also tell them that that we've fallen and God has provided us grace, and we do the best we can, and tell them and tell them how to avoid these snares. Like, if you're, to safeguard themselves. Another part for us that's a really important part of sex education for us is especially, and I think this is going to go for girls and boys, but since I'm a boy's mom, I'm going to talk from a perspective of a boy's mom. We have always been very particular about talking to our boys about never being alone in a room with a girl, even if it's just a friend, even if you're just trying to have some alone time to talk, even if it's just, maybe you guys are playing video games, because we're also talking to them about protecting themselves from allegations and lawsuits and anything like that, or if there's a situation that they feel is getting out of hand. We talk about porn, we talk about porn addictions. It was one of the wonderful things is that my kids it's not wonderful, they have been, but my older boys had been exposed to porn while I was at a mom's night out, but we were all together, the kids were there, homeschool group thing. And this is why when I ran a homeschool group, our kids were not allowed to have phones out, but the kids were hanging out in the home, and they there was a computer around, and my kids were exposed to porn there. That's why when people say, well, I'm protecting my kids from this, well, unless your kid doesn't see other people's kids, and I highly don't recommend that, there's always a chance if there's electronics around. So my kids came, they told me that night, hey mom, these kids, they have porn and they showed it to us all, and so I really hated, and it broke my heart that they were exposed to that, at such a young age. but I was also very happy with the fact that they immediately came to me and told me about the situation that happened. And that is, I really equate that to talking to them all the time and early and being candid, about it. We don't talk about, we don't want people to touch your pee-pee. No, we don't do that. Like no one touches your penis. That's not supposed to happen. And except for you, or if the doctor with my consent does. Other than that, no, that's not supposed to happen. You don't need to be on there looking at anybody else's penises or vaginas or having sex. That's not even something that you need to be looking at. We're always really good about not letting the kids watch super passionate videos, movies and stuff like that, or really hard thing because we like all music, but we definitely do like some hip hop music and stuff like that. But because of the hypersexuality in most of the music videos, my kids just weren't allowed to be exposed to a lot of that stuff. And it was unfortunate because I really feel like they miss out on a lot of our culture. But I knew that my sin nature and my husband's sin nature was sex. That was a big issue for us growing up. That was a big issue for us. Like we knew, together that we shouldn't do these things, but we did and it was an issue for my parents. And so while we're not so great with violence, making sure that they don't watch too much violence, we watch it, but we're not wonderful, to be honest. We are really good about and it does make so a lot of movies don't get watched, or we watch them on VidAngel where it'll skip those scenes for us. Because I don't even do passionate kissing. There's no point, you don't need to see all that. You don't need to see don't even. We're good. So that's, so we really incorporate that. Every family's different. We talked about, are we going to be the no kissing family till you're married, or are we going to be just holding hands? What do we feel about those different things? We talked about age of dating, the expectations, and so we do have a set age. We also do allow the kids to come talk to us if they ever feel like they need to plead a case for something younger. And at this point, we haven't had it. We explain to them why we believe this is a good thing, and then the nice thing is with the younger boys, they can see their older brothers and see what they've gone through. I have to say, I've never been able to avoid heartbreak. I don't know that you can. That being said, when their hearts do get broken, I do talk to them about never allowing their wives to feel this way. Never break your wife's heart, because when you love her, you need to make sure that you never break her heart. You never want to make her feel this way. So I do try to take that negative feeling and turn it into a good thing. And I pray that my kids never break their wife's heart whichever one, once they get married, that they always work to be men of integrity, and they never lose their wife's faith in them. That is very important to me, that they are good men. And that's the goal here. I'm looking to raise good humans that serve the Lord, that are that actually help society, and that is that they are aiding the world in some way in their small part of it, and so and that they raise good families. And my parents did that for me, and I want to do that for my kids. And I feel like if every generation does a better job, then we will see some amazing things in the future. So that's all I got for you guys. So if you have any other questions, please put them down in the comment section below. If you want to consult with me or with Lavonda, if you want to consult about this topic, we have a consulting link down in the description box below as well. If you're looking to homeschool and you're new to this homeschool thing, we have homeschool resources down in the description box below. We've got 75 free resources free for us to give to you. They're not all free resources, but a lot of them are over there as well. Also, you can go and check out our Homeschoolific website, where we have a whole course teaching you how to homeschool. That is actually going to be given at a reduced price. Currently, it's free right now, so if you can get in before we change it, go ahead and do that and enjoy. But yeah, and that course it's done with blood, sweat, and tears. We pushed and we poured a lot of knowledge and did more research than we already have. And combined, we have about, I want to say around 30 years of homeschooling wisdom behind us, including Lavanda's husband being homeschooled himself. So, excuse me. So we get to talk to veteran moms, you know, from his mother, him growing up as a homeschool mom, a child, as well as us being homeschoolers. And I've been doing this for a long time. My oldest will be 24 soon. So just put that out there. So anyway, thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. See you next time.